Hello, welcome to Cafecito Sin Mapa Unmapped Coffee Chats. I'm Jacqueline, your host, and today's episode is all about me. I'm recording this on July 28th, and you'll be seeing it tomorrow on the 29th, right before my 30th birthday on Wednesday. So I thought that I would take you through just memory lane of the last 10 years and where I am now and where I hope to be going in the next 10 years. So to start off with, the reason I want to do this is because, of course, the podcast is fully on womanhood and on labels and identities. And boy, have I gone through all the different identities and labels through the last 10 years. And I say that because they are ever changing. And it always is what fits you at the time. They are not ever set in stone. And though some are, you may identify with them at a different capacity or even change them. So I want to just show how that evolution went for me. So starting in like 2015, I was living back home and I was going to Blinn College and working at a co-op back home, and I'm fully thinking that that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to college, finish, and go back to living in LaGrange and live out my life in a small town. I met some wonderful people, some of my best friends and chosen family about that same time. I've spent so many holidays with them, and they have really been some of the people that have just like nurtured and helped grow me. I will also say that because I was very influenced by small town upbringings, I was very conservative at the time. I thought I was far right leaning. I did know that I was more left or moderate when it came to like social issues, but I thought I still identified as a Republican at that point in time. I then graduated from Blinn and went to Texas State starting summer of 2000, or I guess, yeah, summer of 2016. And I think that was the first time that I got to, of course, leave home, and I'm living with roommates, but outside of my parents, and getting that first taste of freedom. So I definitely was loving alcohol at the time. And I went back and forth on apps at the time, dating apps, trying to figure out my sexuality still. And it was just kind of a start. It was more of an idea at the time, but I didn't go anywhere with it. And 2017 hit, and I am found kayaking to my house because of Hurricane Harvey. And that was a really difficult time for everyone. I think that was the first time I realized how much my family and I don't want to say how much my family depends on me, but I did carry a lot during that time. As I talk about being first gen, a lot of the times you are the person that's taking care of a lot of translating and paper filing and all these things. So at that time, my parents are working on the house and trying to get back in as soon as possible while I'm doing what I'll call all the administrative work. I'm calling insurance, I'm talking to FEMA, I'm making sure that all those things get pushed along so that my family can get back into the house as quickly as possible. And I did think about quitting college at that time, taking a semester off, and really focusing on getting not just my family, but my extended family back into their homes because my parents' house flooded, but it was not completely lost. It was repairable. We had a lot of family that lost their homes completely. And I just felt like the one way I could help was not going to college and staying back home working and being available to them. I thankfully had a really great support system by my friends that I met at the co-op, and they kind of pushed me to not do that. They said that regardless of what I wanted to do, I really needed to focus on myself and not leave that drive to finish college, even though I had full plans of going back. They just you say that and things change and it's always harder to get back in. So they're like, we'll help as much as possible and like emotionally support you through this, even financially. They offered that as well. And it was just really sweet gesture. And it reminded me that I did not have to do all of it alone. So I did not take a break. I went back to college. I actually started a couple weeks later and got approval from the school and my professors to delay start so that I could be around and help my family as much as I could, and then go on my way back to college. So that year was really interesting. From that, having a misplaced family, having my family everywhere displaced, and we also had a lot of plans that year. We almost didn't go on a cruise that we had planned on, but again, we decided, we had already planned on it, and the deed is done. Like, we can't repair the damages that Harvey did, and the funds had already been spent. So why let a trip go to waste that could give us a little bit of joy at that time? And so my mom and I went on a cruise with a group of ladies. It was a whole group of mother-daughter duos, and we had the best time. That year also, I started a tradition with my brother Victor. We started going to country music concerts together. We love country, and he and I started with Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. He was obsessed with Tim McGraw growing up, and so that was where we started. And since then, we have seen Willie Nelson, Alan Jackson, George Strait, Brooks and Dunn, and we have a few more. We're really trying to hit all the like old country first, and then maybe we'll expand into others. But it's a really fun time, and just a thing that I get to spend and bond with my brother on. 2018, I graduated college in the summer, and I also broke my leg that summer. It was quite the experience. It took 15 people to get me out of the woods because I was at the bottom of a hill next to a creek, and I had snapped my ankle both sides. So I had surgery. So first time I broke a bone, and I did it well. I went back to LaGrange, Texas, and started my what I thought was my adult life. And a few months later, this was like actually graduated out of college in August, and I think I started work maybe in September, after I had some time to recover from surgery and stuff, because it was a longer recovery. And then December comes around, and my friend Debbie is telling me, what are you doing here? We were just kind of having a come to Jesus moment, and I had always talked about wanting to travel and like live in the city, and had all these hopes and dreams, and I was settling in LaGrange, and she kind of brought that back up, and mentioned that we knew some people that lived in Dallas, and we're getting to travel and do all those things. And she's like, why don't you reach out to them and see what's it about, and just like try to make that happen for yourself. And so January comes around, 2019, and I'm moving to Dallas. My parents get back from their holiday trip to Mexico, and I am like, hello, I'm moving. And they were thankfully really supportive. I was actually kind of scared because no one really leaves LaGrange or leaves home, and definitely not as a girl. And that was something that I really wanted to do, and I was set on it, and they were supportive, thankfully. I actually moved in with my aunt in Fort Worth that year because I was going to be traveling a lot, and so that was just kind of my stopping grounds in Dallas while I got trained and coming in and out of the airport. So I got to travel so much that year. I went to like over 20 states. I got to go to Iceland that year. I went to Banff, Canada, and I also went to New York for the first time, and it was a bucket list trip. Growing up, I used to watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade every Thanksgiving, and I'd sit there and tell my mom, one day I will sit there and watch it in person. I will go and see it in person. And she'd just kind of laugh and be like, yeah, sure, one day, or like make it happen. And that year, I was like, the first thing I'm doing with my big girl money is fulfilling that dream. And so my mom and I came to New York, and I loved the city, and we just had a blast getting to um, see the parade and like go up to the Empire State Building and like just do all those fun things. And that was what I thought was the last of New York for me. Little did I know I'd be living here and exploring it and seeing the parade again as a local. That still like is surreal to me. Every time Thanksgiving and Christmas comes up, it just reminds me of that little girl that I'm living out her dreams and dreams I didn't even know she had. 2020 comes around and I am living in Dallas. I moved into my own apartment and COVID hits. This is also the year that I had really became friends with a group of girls from work, and was spending a lot of time with them, and made one of them a really close like best friend. And that following year in like beginning of 2021, we moved to Houston together. And I think, and this is really important because it's kind of where a lot of my growth happened. I learned more about myself as just like my sexual identity, and well, the start of that, I was still very much in denial, but things started to transpire there. This was also the time that I got Olive, my cat, so I became a cat mom. And my cousin Cesar was going through cancer that following year, like 2022. And so at this time, I'm just like really going through anxiety, depression, and grieving, and learning how to cope, and learning about mental health. I started therapy, and I'm kind of mixing 2021 and 22 together because it all blurs, because that was the time I was in Houston. So I really think that was like a really pivotal time in my life about learning more about myself, learning to feel emotions. I had never really grieved a loss that big. We had lost my cousin Lane in a car accident in 2020, and that was hard. But for me, it was a little bit easier because I just thought he was with his parents, and I just like never really saw him because I wasn't living back home anymore. And with Cesar, it was different because he was getting treated in Houston, and I was there as often as I could, visiting him, taking him lunch or dinner, or just spending time with him. And so it was a really special and sweet moment and bond that I got to like build with him during that time. But it was also a really hard time because I saw his rapid decline, and it was an emotional roller coaster from seeing him do well, and then a couple days later would turn and be going through a new challenge. And so it was just it was a lot, and I ended up having to start I started therapy, and I started taking antidepressants. And it really took my friend sitting me down and saying, you need help. Bad days have turned into weeks, have turned into months, and you're not getting better, and you should seek help. And that really turned to a point where I was able to learn how to feel for one, and how to sit with those feelings a bit. I was really good, not in a good way, but I was quick to spiral and catastrophize things as much as I could. I mean, like, bad. And so learned a lot of coping mechanisms during that time. And I'll say it was anxiety that was really bad, and I'm not sure that a lot of people even know this, but after Cesar passed, I had this like dreadful feeling that I was next, that something bad was going to happen to me. And so I really struggled with just like getting in the car and driving. I would have thoughts of like, I'm going to get in a car accident, or like I'm going to be next to have cancer or something like that. I had had a biopsy done for a breast lump in like 2017, 18. about right before I graduated. So that was still kind of like top of mind. It was still something that we were monitoring. So it was just a really crazy time. And at the while all this is happening, just in my family and personal life, I'm also living with a friend who we just had a really toxic relationship. It was great when it was great, and it was bad when it wasn't. And so it was just an emotional turmoil. And I say all that because it was her idea to move to New York, and I ended up choosing to try to follow and make New York happen for her and for myself, because she said I could do it, and I was like, well, if I can, I'll do it. And my thought was, if I can get an in-person job in New York and find community there, then I'll move and try it out. And I quickly found a job and was on my way to moving. I sold all my stuff, and then we had a falling out. And that was one of the toughest, like, friendship breakups that I've ever had. And I will say that in retrospect, it was not just a friendship breakup. In my mind, it was kind of a romantic breakup as well, because I did have feelings for her. And what transpired was just a lot of toxicity. And anyway, so all of that to say that I moved to New York, and I am moving here by myself. I am heartbroken. I had chose to move because I had sold all my stuff already, and at this point it was like, I either start over in Texas again or I make New York happen for myself. And so I chose to try New York. Got a 6-month sublet, and within a couple weeks I knew I wanted to stay in New York and make it my home. And I will say that each time I moved away from home, I found myself more and more. And I don't know if it's purely time and age, but I also do think that distance and being alone did that for me. I'll say that as I travel, like going back to me identifying as a Republican back at the start of, I want to say, adulthood, I started leaning more left as I moved further and further away. And it's funny because people will say, like, oh, New York changed you, or, you just got so radical or whatever. And I think it's because I've gotten to experience so many different people along the way, especially with traveling for work. I got to meet people all over the spectrum of poverty and wealth, and health and not healthy, and just people that were immigrants or had generationally been here. And it's just, your eyes open up to more than what your small bubble is. And I'll also say that I realized, even myself, I never thought I had been like racially profiled or that I was excluded from any group. I always felt very accepted. But as I left LaGrange and started to see things differently, I realized that I had put myself in situations where I allowed to be excluded, and I invited it, so I didn't realize that's what happened. And I'll give you examples. I talked in my intro about like code switching when I first did my Q&A stuff, and boy, did I code switch my entire life and had such a front. I was proud to be called a coconut because I felt like that meant I was accepted and I blended in and I was a chameleon. And that can be really helpful. I will say I think it's a power I have. I can just about blend in anywhere I go and find connections and ways to talk to people. And it's been very helpful in my career. But it also hindered my self-acceptance of like my heritage and where I come from. So it wasn't until like the last few years that I've opened up about my parents being immigrants and me not learning Spanish or English until I was in pre-K. Um, my best friend, actually, my best friend from age 5, texted me when the podcast started and was like, I did not know you lived in a trailer park growing up, because I never gave people access to my home life, my school life. They were separate. And another thing, because I hung out with a lot of white people at the time, one of the things that also happened, I would see sometimes people would say like, oh, here comes like the Mexicans, or they would say like comments like that. And I found later I started noticing that I'd be like, wait, but I'm here and I'm Mexican. And they'd be like, no, like you don't count, you're one of us. And it wasn't until probably the last couple of years that I realized that was diminishing my existence as a Mexican American, because I was no different than the people that were walking in. And just because, I mean, I know I'm lighter skinned and I might be able to blend in a little bit easier, I still think that I'm very visually Mexican, especially when my hair is curly. But even in New York, like some people don't think I speak Spanish until they actually hear me and they're like, oh, you like speak Spanish. They think I just like know some of it. And I say all that because I think it's more of like my self-acceptance and how I present myself that allows people to treat you in a certain way. I now am very open about my family history and where we come from, and the struggle that my parents went through. And it's a lot of hard work, and it should not be kind of hidden because it's embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. I'm very proud of them for all of the things that they've done to be able to get us to where we are. And I wouldn't be living in New York, living my dreams out, because if it wasn't for them and for them giving us the life that they have been able to. And through that also, I think growing up, you learn empathy. And in the last few years, I've definitely really learned that parents, brothers, everyone, that we're all living for the first time and we all make mistakes. I've made mistakes, and giving myself grace, giving my parents grace wherever they even just like things that they did. I grew up really sheltered and a really overprotective family. They did what they thought was right at the time, and I think if they could go back, they might have done things differently. But I can't judge them for that anymore. I used to, and I used to be really hard on them for treating me differently than my brothers, and understanding that there is just like a generational gap there, and we're also they're Mexicans with Mexican idealisms and mentality, living in a world that they don't know. It's a country they don't know, a language they don't know, and they're having to adjust while they're also trying to put food on the table and make sure that they're raising their kids correctly. And there's a lot that they're juggling. So not everything's going to be perfect. And yet, all of that is how I got to where I am now. So I think as I've gotten older and wiser, I can appreciate more my background and not be ashamed to say those things out loud to people, because I'm actually proud of them now, whereas I used to be ashamed. All that to say, I'm now living in New York, very comfortable in my sexuality and who I am. I'm very big into being a feminist. Like, if you're watching this, you see my feminist Abe up here. I'm also really big into reading, and if you're looking at my bookshelf, there's a variety of books. Not only do I read fiction, nonfiction. I also read a lot on like mental awareness and like immigration and things like that, because I just think knowledge is power, and understanding things from all different perspectives is important. A really big thing that I learned and picked up in the last year is that there are a lot of Mexicans that lean Republican, and whereas some people may not understand that because of immigration laws and things like that, we also have to think about how everyone's just trying to vote for what is going to be the most helpful for them at the end of the day, what's going to help put food on the table for your family. So that also gave me a lot of grace for, I think, all Republicans and all liberals, and however you identify. It really opened my mind that there's reasons people are the way they are, and it's not always negative. It just because someone voted one way or the other doesn't mean that they're bad people. I think that there's always so much more to the story than we see. So I've tried to give people the benefit of the doubt, and just learn through conversation. And I hope that that comes through on the podcast, because that really is the whole point of this, is that we are all different. And at the end of the day, if you actually sit and have a conversation with people, you'll realize that there is so much more in common with one another. You can find some commonality, or you can just be more empathetic or sympathetic to their situation and why they think the way they do. And through education and conversation, we can maybe learn to close the gap in our differences a little bit more. But I do also think that it's really important to accept yourself. The biggest thing that happened for me to even get to that point of being so open-minded to differing opinions and things is me sitting comfortably in my truth and where I sit. And I think that really opens your mind, instead of being defensive because people may be able to change your mind, being strong in who you are and not taking it as criticism or as like people nitpicking you, is really powerful, honestly. And that's not just for work, in life and relationships and everything. I think feedback's great, and the only way it's accepted is when you know that, when you can identify your own strengths and weaknesses as well, and know what would be beneficial for you versus not. So I don't know if that makes sense. I think that in life, it all has just kind of like come together for me in the last couple years, because I have been able to grow in self-acceptance. I know I've mentioned like sexuality a bit too, and I think that moving away from home and being able to just really search for myself in New York, I didn't know anybody. I had one friend, and he was more of an acquaintance at the time. He's one of my best friends now, but I knew him. We worked at the same company, a couple companies, and that was the extent of that. But we weren't really like outside of work friends at the time, and so I really moved to New York without a single person and had to sit by myself, and that gave me a lot of time to think and learn about myself, heal from all the things that had happened. And through that, it also took a lot of pressure of feeling like you have to explain yourself to people. I think that when you're exploring something that's as sensitive as your sexuality in a place that there are very like heteronormative ideals in place, and very just like preconceived notions of what you were supposed to be or who you have been in the past, and people can can have very different opinions when you are going through those changes. Being so far away from home and removing that pressure of explaining and judgment and all that stuff, freeing myself from that just really allowed me to find myself. And I've always thought that it is so beneficial to leave your hometown, even if you go back, which is fine. I think you'll find your place, but even if you just leave for a little bit, maybe take solo trips, find some way to spend time by yourself, you'll really find who you are, and end up being more comfortable in your own skin. I think another thing that's crazy, just literally right now in my current life, I was working at the company that I moved to New York to work for, and I met some of my best friends there, and then I got laid off recently. If you follow me on my personal accounts, I posted that, and I was unemployed, guys, for 1 week. I quickly, I did not even apply for jobs. I'm always very active on LinkedIn, and the CEO of the company that I'm working for now reached out to me, and we immediately clicked, and I really liked his passion for the company he created and his team. That very same day, I met the person that was hiring for the team, and we also just really hit it off. And by the following week, they were expediting my onboarding, my interview process, and extended the offer that same week. And I started today. I'm recording this after my first day of work in office, and I think it's crazy how life works. I got laid off, and within the same week started the interview process, had 1 week off, and then started the new job. And it's crazy because if you've known me growing up, I have gone through quite the journey in like my faith and spirituality, and I've never wanted like my palm read or cards read, anything like that, because I grew up very Catholic, and I just like didn't think that was okay. And again, as I've become more self-aware and more in tune with spirituality in whole, not just Catholicism, I've opened my mind to other things, and I felt drawn to get my palm read not too long ago, and the lady told me that I didn't realize the luck I had. She's like, you are such a lucky person. And it was just kind of reiterated whenever all of this transpired in the last week, because how crazy is it that I was laid off and started a job immediately after? It is such a blessing, and I'm so thankful to God and everyone out there. But I do think that I also got lucky. There's a lot of people out there that are on the job market. It's a very hard job market right now, and somehow the stars aligned for me. So that leads me to where I am now. I am starting my 30s in a new job. I don't know if it's new career path, because it's still in the same realm. I'm still doing implementations, onboarding, but it's for a startup, and so the growth and potential there is crazy, and I'm just like so excited for the challenge. I'm going into my 30s being quite comfortable in myself, probably feeling the most confident I've ever felt in my body and my mind. I'm going in having been through quite a bit of therapy and a lot of self-awareness and realization. The last 3 weeks, especially with like getting laid off and all the turmoils, and my therapist was gone and I was able to handle it without crashing out. That was a huge win, and I can't wait to tell her that I survived without her, because it was touch and go there for a second. I am also going into 30 feeling like I just know myself. I'm very content with who I am. I think there's probably still stuff that I have to discover. And I'm sure there's labels and identities that I will switch up again. I mean, if we're looking at just me taking you through the start, I was a straight Republican, single woman, small town girl, very whitewashed, and today I'm sitting as a bisexual Mexican American first gen woman who is very comfortable in her skin. She's a cat mom, and she's a city girl. She's a traveler. She's getting to be a storyteller through podcast. I also do like pet photography for fun, and that has led to me meeting wonderful people. And it's just a joy. And I'll say that I don't know where I want to be in the next 10 years. I moved every couple years. I mean, I went from Dallas to Houston to New York. And I'm at the like 2.5 mark here in New York, but I feel very comfortable and happy here right now. I could see myself staying for a while. I could also see myself trying to go abroad. I love to travel. I'm not slowing down on that. Since 2019, I also made it out to like London and Italy, Cabo, Cancun. I think I went to Canada again. I've been all over the place, and it has just been so incredible. It's been such a dream, and I hope that in the next 10 years I'll get to do my number one bucket list item, which is going to Zimbabwe and going to visit Victoria Falls, maybe go bungee jumping from Victoria Falls. I hope that I continue to grow the podcast and get to just explore and talk to more people. Even with such a small starting platform, I've gotten to chat and meet Broadway stars and people of all kinds of backgrounds, and I'm just really excited to learn more, and I'm just curious to know about other people's life and journeys. I really think that I have a really good solid footing going into 30, and I'm excited for the challenges to come, but it's looking pretty comfortable and bright so far. I hope that this gives you a little bit of more insight into who I am, where I come from, and what I'm doing. And I know I talked a lot, and it was all over the place, but as you see, I mean, like, our life is really just a jumble of all your experiences and who you are and who you surround yourself with. So I really want your the takeaway from this to be let's see, I want your takeaway to be that you should not be afraid to be alone. Even when it gets lonely, you are going to find yourself the most during that time. Surround yourself with people that support you and love you and care for you, who fill your cup just as much as you fill their cup. And to take chances and do things for yourself. You can do things for other people. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm saying that it's okay to be a little bit selfish and choose yourself, because at the end of the day, if you don't choose yourself, you may end up never finding yourself. And so it's okay to be selfish sometimes with your time, with your space, with the way you choose to live. I think exposure to different cultures and people and different walks of life really challenge you to open your mind, and it can also lead to you finding yourself along the way. So here is to me turning 30, and thank you so much for watching. I'm really excited for you guys to hear the next few episodes. I have some really fun interviews that will be coming out, and I hope that your coffee is warm or iced, whatever it is that you are enjoying, a nice caffeinated drink or whatever it is that you that puts a smile on your face. And I will chat with you soon. Bye.